On February 24, 1978, 5 friends left a basketball game in Northern California. They were supposed to drive home. Instead, their car was found abandoned high in the mountains, far from their route, with no signs of a crash, no struggle, and no explanation for why they were there. Then came the discovery that turned the case into one of America's strangest mysteries. Inside a remote Forest Service trailer, investigators found the body of one of the men. Shelter was available. Food was available. Supplies that could have kept someone alive for months remained largely unused. The other 4 men had vanished into the wilderness. Nearly 50 years later, no one knows why the Yuba County Five drove into the mountains that night, or what they were running from. The 5 men, Jack Hewitt, Ted Wire, Bill Sterling, Jack Madruga, and Gary Mathias, were familiar faces in the town of Chico, California. They regularly attended basketball games together and were known as friendly, quiet members of their community. 4 of the men had mild intellectual disabilities. Gary Mathias had a history of psychiatric issues, including schizophrenia. But they worked, they had routines, and they were part of the community around them. Jack Madruga, who was driving that night, was known as a careful and responsible driver. His mother said he never took unnecessary risks behind the wheel. Never. The route home should have taken them south. But their car was found north near Oroville, on a remote mountain road they had no clear reason to take. It was not crashed. It was not out of gas. It was simply abandoned, facing the wrong direction, in the darkness. Investigators often return to the same explanation, that the men's disabilities may have influenced their decisions. But that did not explain why a careful driver took a road that led away from home. It did not explain why the car was left behind, and it did not explain why 5 men would walk into the Sierra Nevada mountains during winter. Then there was Gary Mathias. He was the only member of the group who was never found. When the others were eventually discovered, Gary was not among them. Not then. Not since. Why would 5 men abandon a working car and walk into the mountains? Share your theory below. Because what investigators found next only made the mystery harder to understand. Nearly 3.5 months after the disappearance, a search team reached a remote Forest Service trailer deep in the Sierra Nevada, nearly 20 miles from where Jack Madruga's car had been abandoned. What they found inside is the part of the case that still haunts investigators today. Ted Wire was there, dead, but not immediately. The evidence suggested he survived for weeks after the others disappeared, possibly as long as 13 weeks. Inside the trailer were food, blankets, matches, and supplies that could have helped him survive for months. Ted had used some of them. He had eaten part of the food. He had wrapped himself in blankets. He had tried to stay alive, but eventually, he died from starvation and exposure. His feet had suffered severe frostbite and gangrene. Nearby, searchers found the remains of Jack Hewitt, Bill Sterling, and Jack Madruga scattered through the wilderness. Their deaths were consistent with hypothermia. And this is where the mystery becomes almost impossible to explain. The families said the men were afraid of the dark and uncomfortable in unfamiliar places. Friends believed they would never have willingly traveled deep into the mountains. Yet somehow, they ended up nearly 20 miles away, in freezing temperatures, surrounded by snow. Why leave a working car? Why walk into the wilderness? Why did Ted stay inside the trailer when survival supplies were within reach? The car was facing the wrong direction. 4 men were found dead. 1 man disappeared completely. For nearly 50 years, the truth behind the Yuba County Five has remained buried in the Sierra Nevada, but mysteries leave clues behind. Every place has a story. Subscribe to Pinpoint as we uncover the disappearances, disasters, and forgotten moments that still refuse to be explained.